I'm John Rogers, Chairman and co-CEO of REYNOLDS Investments, based here in Chicago. Really pleased to have an opportunity to support Reverend Jackson and the great work at Rainbow Push. And we have a great group of leaders here to discuss really important issues confronting all of us that are in the investment banking, money management part of our economy. As we all know, our economy has become more of a professional services and financial services and technology-based economy. And for us to be able to make a dent in this huge wealth gap that's in our country, we have to have more stronger, Black-owned financial services companies that are creating real wealth, hiring people, creating real philanthropy and political empowerment for our community. So I'm proud to be able to be on the panel today and to moderate this panel with two longtime friends and one new friend. So my new friend is JONTE HARRELL. He's the head of equity capital markets at Drexel Hamilton, and he'll have a chance to talk about his career. I'm not sure whether I've known Jim Haddon or Jim Reynolds the longest, but let's just start.
I'm older, so you've probably known me longer.
Well, Jim Haddon is the leader at Ramirez and Company, which is one of the oldest and largest Latinx financial services company. And we'll talk about Jim's illustrious career and pioneering efforts in investment banking and in money management. And then Jim Reynolds is here in Chicago, who's the founder of Loop Capital Management, which is an extraordinarily successful large firm, and a lot of exciting things have been happening with Jim recently. So it's just perfect timing to get started.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
So what I want to start with, and maybe I'll start with you, Jim. Reynolds.
Which Jim?
Yes, Jim Reynolds. I'll call Jim Haddon Jimmy, and I'll call you Jim. That's okay.
Perfect.
That's how we go.
That is
great.
That is.
So Jim, I just want to start. Tell us a bit about what was your inspiration to get into the financial service industry originally? Because as you know, from our generation, there were not many of us in this industry.
Right. Well, it was very serendipitous, actually. I didn't start off to enter the financial services business. When I came from undergrad, I thought I was actually going to go to law school. And as I got closer and closer to graduation, I realized that really wasn't a dream for me. And as I graduated from undergrad, I did a little stint in studying international business in Paris and really fell in love with business.
My story, just real quickly, I went to Stanford and I didn't know anything about the finance world. When I got to Stanford, everybody either wanted to be a consultant or an investment banker. So I said, I'll try to be an investment banker. And I tried to get a job in corporate finance and couldn't. Coming out of Stanford.
What year was this?
1980. I came very close to getting a couple jobs, but not the hire. Oh, we really liked you, or whatever. We don't need to go down that road. But so I was attracted to municipal finance, and the municipal finance wanted to hire me because they did see the trend line coming that they needed to bring more minorities into their municipal finance area. So it was very easy for African Americans. I would say the port of entry for us was through the municipal finance door. Now, in the late 80s and in the early 90s, as the street expanded dramatically, Wall Street, the industry grew, at least the investment banking industry. Then they started bringing in a lot more minorities into the corporate finance areas. And I do think there was a significant growth there. But to just put a finer point on Jim's point, I do think there are fewer senior Blacks at these companies across the board. And either because they're Jim Reynolds and they go start their own company, or they wash out for whatever reason. But they're just, the companies haven't done a good job of retaining and promoting talent. And I hope in this whole Black Lives Matter moment that they're really focused on that.
Well, seeing the old time, now we have a younger leader, JONTE.
He doesn't know what we're talking about. He's like, right. What are you guys talking about?
Well, I'm just honored to hear these stories firsthand, because I couldn't imagine the journey, but I do appreciate it. And my journey was different. You know, I interned at Credit Suisse during the crisis and was one of four interns out of, I believe, 15 that was offered a full-time, job the next year after business school. And so I was lucky to get an opportunity to learn about the industry from, Gardy Berthomeu, who was, a Black banker at Credit Suisse. So he showed me the ropes, and without that mentorship and advocacy behind the scenes, I'm sure I wouldn't have been promoted, at the pace I was. And so I had a very different journey, but I first learned about stocks from a Value Line book that was given to me when I was 17. And from there, did a bit of research, and it's funny that some of the names you were mentioning, whether it's a Ray McGuire, Tracy Maitland, were in a book or in a magazine, Black Enterprise, and it was the 25 hottest Blacks on Wall Street. And when I flipped through those pages and saw the suits and kind of the swagger, I said, okay, well, this is what I want to do.
Oh, I think Chris Williams and I were on the cover of that publication.
Absolutely, sir. So as when I say it's an honor, it absolutely is.
Well, just one side note, Jim's point is that, Black Enterprise, to Shantae's point, Black Enterprise has been so important, instrumental in highlighting these success stories and these unicorns who literally were unicorns being able to make it in a field where no one else could make it. And, one of the things that's happened now in Silicon Valley, Reverend Jackson fought hard to get the big companies there to have their first African-American directors. And he used the data from the Black Enterprise corporate directors issue, where Butch had a special page showing how little Blacks were on the boards of these major giant companies out there, the Apple Computers of the world, et cetera, et cetera. And sure enough, once Reverend Jackson took that data and took the Black Enterprise data and started showing up at the annual meetings, all of a sudden they all had their first Black board members, from Apple to Hewlett Packard, you go down the list. So I just think it's so important that we recognize the leadership of Black Enterprise and how important it is for all of us that have been on this journey, that when you get on a cover like Jim has, it does something your customers take seriously when you hand it out to them and say, here, I'm a success. And, I don't have to say it myself, Black Enterprise is saying it. It does make all the difference.
Hey, but John, I know you're the moderator, but I think a lot of the folks would like to hear the question turned to you. How you get it. Yeah, that would be really kind of good because your story is amazing. Very amazing.
Well, I'll just hit a couple quick sentences. So thank you for saying that, Jim. But, we were the first African-American money management firm in the country's history in 1983 when we got started. Everybody, as you mentioned, people started in municipal finance. A few people were trying to get into corporate finance. But the idea of managing institutional stock portfolios or managing individuals' money through mutual funds was something that African Americans had not been a part of it at all. And our history, the only person I know that was involved back then, Eddie Brown, was working with T. Rowe Price at the time as a portfolio manager. And he started his company 6 months after we did. And then a few others came along. Maceo Sloan was the NCM Capital. And, quickly there was a handful of us sort of
Lou Holland,
our friend Lou
Holland. Yeah,
Lou Holland was another early person. But, the confidence to be the first happened just as you've heard the story 1,000 times. My father really did buy stocks for me every birthday and every Christmas after I was 12. I fell in love with the stock market and it just became my passion. I was the one guy on the basketball team at Princeton who had my Value Line and my Fortune and my Black Enterprise and my Forbes to read about the stock market on the long bus rides we had back then in the good old days. Yeah, been very, very fortunate to pick the right part of the financial service industry to work in. And thanks for the mention. Well, Jim, you've made such a difference in our community. You've supported these important leaders we've talked about. Can you talk about, are there 2 or 3 things you're especially proud of that are, be a part of your legacy of how you've been able to make a difference for our community and live within the spirit of Reverend Jackson and John Lewis?
You know, I'll just name a couple, and then it's supporting, being in a position, John, to financially support our leaders who need it so much. You know, Reverend Jackson, Reverend Sharpton, all of our folks in Congress. I pretty much do everything I can to be able to support them. I think as a businessman, that's what I'm supposed to do. The other thing that I'm very proud of, I think by the time we're done, Loop may put more Blacks on Wall Street than any other single entity. You know, and John, you know, you and I do our internships together. And we started over the years, 20, 30 students every summer. And I've been doing it now for over 20 years. So a lot of the young Blacks that came through our early classes are senior people now on Wall Street, on asset management places and private equity and hedge funds. And so those two things are things I'm particularly proud of. But also the third thing, John, and I know you too, I'm never leaving Chicago. I mean, when we look at Chicago and how important it is to have Blacks like you, like me, you know, everybody in Chicago just mentions our two names. You know that everywhere we go. I joke that people thought we were the same person for many, many, many years. Once they saw us, they saw I was much better looking than you. So they really couldn't have made that error in the first place. But our profiles in Chicago and how important it is for Blacks to see us and how important it is for us to stay engaged in our communities. So I would stop at those three.
I mean, Jimmy, you know, as you look forward, you know, how do you think we can be more impactful in supporting our civil rights leaders and our political leaders to get back to the way it was, as both you and Jim talked about? It was a difference 40 years ago when we had these great leaders doing so well politically. So what can we do? What are the responsibilities that you have? And you can give us some maybe closing thoughts on what we can all be doing to make sure we're helping to support these leaders that can make a difference for all of us.
Yes. Well, you know, I would say we have to stay involved. We have to stay in touch. And we can do that financially. And, you know, in our industries, we have constraints for how much we can do that, but we can do the best we can financially. But I think, and we have to be supportive of our historical icons. And I can't say enough about what Reverend Jackson is doing and what the Reverend Al Sharpton is doing. And we need more of them because, you know, they're getting up there too. And we need some young people to come on and take those. But we need to have frank conversations with them about informing them about our business, because our business is a unique little cottage industry relative to what they're doing in the greater civil rights efforts. But we need to keep them informed and to keep them on task. And I think when I speak to politicians now, I'm always talking about reminding them that they can enforce the rules as to who they hire and do business with, and that they need to do that. They need to take a strong, stance in doing that.
If you could each of you just say in a headline, what are you the most proud of what you've been able to accomplish so far in your career?
I would just say as a career, building and continuing to build a Black-owned investment bank that's at the level of Loop, doing it the way we've done it, and the future ahead of us. So I'm very proud of that and the impact that we've had on Blacks in the industry and outside of the industry.
I'm very proud of the fact of the reputation that I've built in this business. And that's important to me. And I was always told by my parents to be, honorable and ethical. And I think I've been able to do that and be successful. I mean, what the questions I get a lot is, how were you successful on Wall Street for so many years? And it is an area where people come and go. So that's what I think I would put down as one of my primary accomplishments.
I'm most proud of continuing to use the platform I have and the voice to not only hire trained vets, but to also realize that I'm African American and I'm a Black male, and I need to ease that pathway and help those who look like me also get to this opportunity.
Thank all of you. You guys are all making a difference in our community, making a difference for our people, being role models for next generations of investment leaders. So thank you so much, and so great you're here supporting Reverend Jackson and Rainbow.